Hello everybody and welcome back to Operation Logistics, where I was just looking at the town buildings and I want to change the name of Basic Business to Store, and I want to change the name of Basic Industry to something as well. I guess we could just call it like Plant? I don't know. I also want to change Mill. I think I'm going to change that to Utility. So, like water treatment plants, power plants, things like that. And as far as plant here goes, this is just a small factory or something. Okay, there we go. So, realistically, in the last episode, we did manage to get forests fully implemented and correctly generating. So that's great. So here we are in a forest. Now, there are a couple of things. First, obviously, we can't see what's in it when we're here, and we really can't see what's in it when we're here. We have very little information from where we are right here. Very little information at all. What is our frame rate? About 40 FPS. Okay, we'll need to work on that eventually, but as of right now, we can't really see what's going on in any particular tile when we're not directly in that tile. Now, I don't know how I want to fix that yet. Making everything be visible from here is not going to be performant, shall we say. And making everything visible from here is going to be incredibly unperformant. So it's something I'm thinking about. I'm trying to figure out how exactly I want to have things be visible. We could do it via it generates a texture and you can see the texture from here because it just draws the texture, because it like renders this once and then uses this as the texture. That's a possibility. We could potentially do that. It would take some experimentation. I've never really done anything like that before. But that's a possibility, and then we could do the same thing on this level. And then when you fully zoom in, then it becomes actually 3D. Like this. That's a possibility. For sure. But for right now, we could start working on implementing towns. The first thing that I would like to do for that is, for towns, I want to go ahead and implement that we are randomizing the town color no matter what. So there's our first change. And that was incredibly easy. Now we'll have a town here, and you can see that it's actually town colored. So that's good. The next thing is we would need to look at our list of buildings. So up here, we've got our list of buildings for our various types of structures. These are our player-controlled structures here. And then these aren't exactly player-controlled. And I cut railroad, didn't I? I was thinking about cutting railroad. No, but it's player-constructed only, I think. Yeah. Yeah. Only player-constructed. So I'm not going to cut railroad, but it's not going to generate with railroads built. So this is America we're talking about, I guess. I mean, America does have railroads, but we don't like to think about them. Okay, so we've got our 3 building types, and as far as the town goes, realistically for the house, here's what I'm thinking. We take this, we delete the trees, and we recolor it. File, save as, house. What? No. Save as house. Okay. So, we recolor this then, and in order to do that, we can just go ahead and select everything here, grab our UV image editor here, grab everything in here, and I don't know, let's make them white. Voila! We've got ourselves a house. Obviously, I'm not going to want to reuse assets in this way in the final version, but we're not worrying about an art pass right now. I just want to have something. So, as far as the town generation goes, I mean, small towns do tend to be clumped together in that they've got a bunch of residential here. Over here, they've got some stores. Over here, they've got whatever small industrial they can manage to have. But I'm kind of thinking maybe this should be just kind of randomly mishmashed. But we are going to be needing our rural prefabs here, so let's go ahead and do public game object house, not horse, house, public game object, and this is going to be store, and public game object, and this is going to be plant. Okay. So down here in the town, we can go ahead and do ourselves a roll. So, in fact, we've got a roll already. We are going to need some random chances, so we could create ourselves a bit of a structure to do this, but I don't feel like it. So I'm going to do it this way. Public float house chance equals 33. Public float store chance equals 33. And then everything else is plant chance. And actually, I'm going to round this up. So house chance is 34, store chance is 33, and then industry chance would be 33 as well. I'm actually going to bump this a little differently. 50% for house, and then like 30% for store, and then about a 20% chance for industry. Okay, so right here, if roll is less than house chance, then we want to just go ahead and make this be a house. So sub hexes I dot building equals buildings dot house. And then here, building equals house. If I can type. Else if roll is less than house chance plus, this would then be store chance. Subhexes I dot building equals buildings dot, this would be store. And then building equals store. And then one more. Else subhexes I dot building equals buildings dot plant. Building equals plant. Okay. There we go. And we've now got ourselves our towns generating. We just don't necessarily have visuals for two of them. Okay, now where did I put the house mesh? The house mesh is, I think, just in here, mishmashed with all the others. Yes, indeed. Okay, let's make sure it has the correct material. There we go. Looks kind of awful, but that's to be expected. I'm not too worried about this yet. I will eventually be worried about it. Let's go ahead and delete the tree in the center. We don't need that. And then let's call this building house. Okay. And then let's create ourselves a new folder here. And this will be called town. And then we've got building house here. Perfect. Okay. So sub-hexes then needs house to be right here. And then building road placeholder can go ahead and be for store and plant for right now. And then we also need to make sure that this is component values pasted so that it's correctly scaled. Perfect. We will apply that. And now we should have roughly half of our towns generating properly. And then we'll need to create ourselves a store model. Oh my. Variable house has not been assigned. Oh, did I not assign that? Oh, I didn't assign the house. Well, that'll do it. There we go. And realistically, I'm probably going to want to change the color of towns here pretty soon. Oh, no town there. Okay. Yeah, there we go. We've got some houses. Not a lot of houses, but a few. So we've got some houses there. Nice. What about if we go over here? More houses? Actually, yeah, there are. There's a decent chunk of houses. Excellent. Okay. So, realistically, how do I want to show stores? Like, I feel like I don't want to put too much time into the models of all of these buildings right now. I would rather come back and... I'd rather get the game working and come back and do an art pass later on. But one thing I did just realize is that the vast majority of farmland is, for our purposes, empty. I mean, we're going to want to have crops appearing in there eventually, but for right now, that wouldn't necessarily be a huge deal. But yeah, I mean, stores are currently generating, and plants are as well. So what I'm actually thinking is maybe what we need to do is we need to just leave the placeholders for right now and have them all actually properly generating. So let's go ahead and do that. So we've got house, store, plant, and then the other one for farmland is field, barn, farmhouse. So public game object field, public game object barn, public game object farmhouse. Okay. And then let's say public float field chance equals, and we'll say that there's probably, I don't know, like a 80% chance that it generates a field in farmland. And then public float farm chance, or rather farm house chance equals 10, and it would be the same for the barn. So let's go ahead and generate our farmland then. So down here in the farmland, we'll go ahead and move our overlay color up here. Excellent. And then we will just say if roll is less than farmland chance, or rather field chance. That's what I called it. Okay. So if it's less than field chance, then all we need to do is say subhexes I dot building equals buildings dot field, and then subhexes I, we'll go ahead and set the biome. Dot biome equals biomes dot this is farmland. Now one thing I'm wondering is why am I setting the biome separately? Why don't we just set the biome when we set the overlay color? That's not going to change, so yeah, let's just do that. Subhexes I dot biome equals biomes dot town. There we go. Okay, so I set it up that way for forest as well. We'll set this here. So biomes equals farmland. Subhexes I dot building equals buildings dot field. Building equals field. Now fields for right now are going to be basically empty. And then we'll probably reuse the house for the farmhouse. And then I don't know what we'll do for the barn. Maybe we'll just leave that as a placeholder because we know that if it's not a field or a house, it's a barn. Seems good to me. So else if roll is less than field chance plus farmhouse chance subhexes I dot building equals buildings dot farmhouse. Building equals farmhouse. Okay. Else subhexes I. We know for a fact at this point that this is definitely going to be a barn. Buildings dot barn. Building equals barn. Okay, so that should be the farmland generating. And we'll need to put in our prefabs here. Obviously, these prefabs aren't going to be fully complete, but I'm going to go ahead and create a folder here, and we will call this farmland. I'm going to duplicate the building clearing by bringing it up here. And I would like to just break the prefab. Currently, that's not going to be a thing. But we'll just place this then in the farmland section here. And I will call this building field. We can get rid of this one. Don't need that anymore. Okay, so there's our field. And then I'm going to copy in the house. And we're going to make that be a building farmhouse. There we go. Excellent. So let's have this be our field, our farmhouse, and then our placeholder can be barns. Well, let's see how that works. Okay, here's some farmland. So it's mostly fields. There's a couple of barns over here, and then we've got 2 farmhouses. Few farmhouses scattered around. It's mostly fields, a couple of barns. Nice. Okay, I think that's working. Excellent. So, what's next? Residential? That seems fine. Okay, place that there. And then, as far as residential goes, we will need a couple more variables up here. So I'm going to then say header urban prefabs, since we are now done with our rural generation. And the first one is going to be public game object. This is a residential, so what are our 3? Apartment complex, duplex, and upscale housing. Apartment complex. Game object duplex. And also upscale housing. Okay. So, public float apartment chance equals probably about 75. And then public float the duplex chance. Actually, I'm going to adjust this down to a 66% chance. Duplex chance equals about... I'm going to bring this down again. This is about 50%. And then duplex chance would be about 30%. And then upscale housing would be about 20%. Maybe 10%. 50-40? Yeah, I think that's good. Okay, so let's come on down here and implement our residential. If roll is less than apartment chance, then subhexes, and actually we didn't set our biome. Subhexes I dot biome equals biomes dot residential. There we go. Subhexes I dot building equals buildings dot apartment complex. Subhexes I, what am I doing? This needs to be building equals apartment complex, not apartment chance, apartment complex. There we go. And then an else if here. Else if roll is less than apartment chance chance plus duplex chance. Roll is less than, that helps. Okay, if roll is less than apartment chance plus duplex chance, subhexes I dot building equals buildings dot, and this should be the duplex, not doc, duplex. Building equals duplex. Else, we know for a fact that this should be upscale housing. Subhexes I dot building equals buildings dot upscale housing. Building equals upscale housing. Now we don't have any prefabs for these, and we don't really have any that I feel would be beneficial to sub in. Unlike, for example, the farmhouse and the house. But let's just go ahead and put in some placeholders. And let's make sure that the residential generates properly. Let's see, here's residential. Yep, that appears to be correct. Let's just make absolutely sure here. See, that's an intersection, that's a duplex, that's an apartment complex. Yep, it's all working. Fantastic. Okay, 2 more to go. So let's go ahead and do public game object. So we are now in the commercial section of urban. So warehouse, and I'm not going to capitalize that. Warehouse, mall, storefront. Okay. There we go. And then down here in the commercial area, we'll go ahead and set our overlay color properly. And our biome, subhexes I.biome equals biomes.commercial. There we go. And now let's get our chances here set up. Public float, and this is going to be, let's see here, warehouse chance would probably be the lowest, actually. Storefront chance would be the highest at probably around 60%. Public float mall chance would be pretty low, but we'll make it be a little on the higher end. Malls aren't going to be generating a lot for us, so mall chance would be around probably 30%, we'll say. And then public float, in fact, I'm going to bump up the storefront to 70-20, so 20% for malls, and then 10% for warehouses. Warehouses are going to be the most important for us, of course. So right here, if roll is less than storefront chance, then subhexes I dot building equals buildings dot storefront, and building equals storefront. Else, if roll is less than storefront chance plus mall chance, subhexes I dot building equals buildings dot mall, building equals, one space there, equals mall. Else, subhexes I dot building equals buildings dot warehouse, and that's going to be useful for us. Building equals warehouse. Okay, all that's left is industrial. Let's set it up. So for industrial, we need factory, brewery, utility. So public game object, factory, brewery, utility. Okay. Now, public float factory chance equals about 50%. Public float brewery chance equals about 40%. Public float, well, we don't actually need it. Then the utility would be about 10% chance. Okay. So let's go ahead and set our overlay color for industrial buildings. And hang on, I need to sneeze. That was exciting. Okay, so we now need to say if roll is less than, and this was factory chance, subhexes I dot building, dot building equals buildings dot factory, and then, oh, we didn't set our biome. Subhexes I dot biome equals biomes dot industrial. And then we can say subhexes we can say building, that's not how you spell, building equals, and this will be factory. Else if roll is less than factory chance plus, and this was brewery chance. There we go. Subhexes I dot building equals buildings dot brewery. Building equals brewery, which they will generate shipments relatively occasionally. And then finally, else, this double space here is bothering me. There we go. Else subhexes I dot building equals buildings dot warehouse. And they're going to generate a lot of things for us to ship in and out. Building equals warehouse. Okay. Well, we don't actually have prefabs for all of these yet. So they're not going to visually appear quite yet the way that they do for forest. But let's go ahead and say warehouse, mall, storefront, factory, brewery, and utility all have placeholders. There we go. Okay, so there we go. No errors, and no errors. Excellent. Okay, so they are all now generating their buildings. They just don't necessarily have graphics to go with those buildings. And we might create some, like, symbolizing graphics so that we can actually see, or some really crude graphics in the next episode. And I think that's probably what's going to happen, you know, like smokestacks for factories and maybe a cylinder to represent a keg for breweries and things like that. That's probably going to be what's going to happen in the next episode. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and put a cut in here, and we will be putting in some very basic graphics to that, and also maybe starting on some gameplay elements in the next episode. See you all then.